The Audi A6 C5 has shown tremendous advances in technology to catch up and overtake its two fellow countrymen. Each power unit of this car was stuffed with literally every type of technology that existed at that time. Gasoline engines had 5 valves per cylinder, phase shifters of familiar and surprising designs, systems for changing the length of the intake manifold. Some engines had biturbocharging. These engines introduced Audi fans to correct tolerances, quality oils, and expert service. Well, those owners who did not want to maintain the engines according to strict regulations and frankly saved money quickly ran into unpleasant, expensive problems. Especially if the owner forgot about the need to replace the timing belt. We have detailed video breakdowns for almost all of these Audi A6 C5 engines. A list of links is in the description. The base engines of this generation Audi A6 are 1.8-liter inline fours. There is literally one naturally aspirated version, the rest are turbocharged, with 150 and 180 horsepower. There are very few of these A6s left on sale. These modifications were produced from the very beginning of the existence of this model, April 1997, until mid-2001. Practice shows that these engines are quite reliable, but the years take their toll. Trouble is caused by a complex intake tract, capricious ignition coils, and an expensive hydraulic tensioner for the inner shaft chain. Saving on oil leads to clogging of the oil intake and rotation of the liners. The restyled Audi A6 C5 was equipped with a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. A very unsuccessful engine consuming huge amounts of oil and generally dying slowly. It can be cured by installing non-original pistons and rings. Almost all Audi A6 C5 with petrol engines remaining on the roads are equipped with naturally aspirated V6s of 2.4 and 2.8 liters. These are good durable engines, but many of them begin to actively consume oil through a worn CPG or tired oil scraper rings. On pre-restyling cars, an unsuccessful crankcase ventilation system periodically causes problems. Its tubes and ejection pump become clogged. These engines readily flow oil, especially against the backdrop of high crankcase pressure. And a tired fan clutch results in an overheated engine and expensive problems. Well, the most expensive problem of these V6s is the hydraulic tensioners of the inter-camshaft chains. They also serve as phase shifters. If the hydraulic tensioners begin to sweat oil or the engine begins to rattle with the camshaft chains, and this happens once every 250,000 to 300,000 kilometers, they will have to be changed. The original tensioners cost $500, and there are 2 of them on this V6. True, it will be much more expensive to replace the engine if it dies due to the already mentioned overheating or due to a break in a high-quality timing belt. It is better to change timing belts of average quality every 60,000 kilometers, and immediately with a pump. The original or a good substitute lasts twice as long. Based on these V6s, a 2.7-liter Biturbo engine was created. There are few such Audi A6 C5s, but the engine itself is reliable and durable in terms of hardware. The problems and weaknesses are the same as those of naturally aspirated V6s, plus a troublesome and complex intake with 2 turbines. Turbines last quite a long time. More often you have to look for the causes of problems with supercharging due to problems in controlling the same supercharging. After restyling, the 2.8-liter naturally aspirated version disappeared from the Audi A6 C5 engine range. It was replaced by a 3.0-liter V6. This is a continuation of the same series of engines with 5 valves per cylinder, but the cylinder block is already made of light alloy, with thin cast iron liners. This is a controversial motor, which lasts a long time only with expensive, qualified maintenance. Among its particular disadvantages are progressive oil consumption and the likelihood of cracks appearing in the thin walls of the cylinder block. In nature, there are Audi C5s with 4.2-liter V8 gasoline engines. Moreover, Biturbo versions were produced for a very short time. These engines are descended from naturally aspirated V6s and have 5 valves per cylinder and a timing belt. However, they are based on a light alloy rather than a cast iron cylinder block. There are no liners, the surface of the aluminum cylinders has a special treatment. All these engines reached enormous oil consumption and scuffing in the cylinders. Only a few have been re-gilded and are kept in the hands of collectors. Separately, we note that the Audi A6 all-road in the C5 body was equipped with a 4.2-liter 40-valve V8 with a timing chain drive. It was not available on sedans and regular station wagons. This engine was transferred to the C6 body. This engine consumes oil in huge quantities. The range of diesel engines for the Audi A6 C5 is more modest. There are no engines with common rail at all. Pre-styling cars were equipped with a simple 1.9 TDI turbodiesel with direct injection based on a distributor injection pump. Perhaps this is the most resourceful and durable diesel engine under the hood of the A6. The only thing that can kill it is a broken belt or simply a lack of minimal maintenance. Since the beginning of 1998, an inline diesel 4 with pump injectors began to be installed on the A6 C5. Engine increased to 131 horsepower. Power appeared after restyling. And these are very controversial engines. In general, engines with pump injectors have many fans who are delighted with their service life and durability. At the same time, many of these engines create persistent and expensive problems. Yes, some problems do not arise if the correct engine oil is used. But pump injectors can still damage their sockets in the cylinder head. Then the head will have to either be changed or replaced. We have detailed analyses of these motors, as well as many others. The entire scope of problems is listed. Therefore, if you are looking for an Audi A6 C5 with a diesel, arm yourself with information so as not to buy a car with a very shabby engine. At the end of 1997, a completely new 2.5-liter V6 turbodiesel engine appeared on the Audi A6 C5. Its cast iron block is almost the same as that of 2.4 and 2.8-liter gasoline engines. All these engines are supercharged by one turbocharger, and the fuel system is based on a distribution-type fuel injection pump. There are no pump injectors on these V6s. Almost everyone who owned an Audi with these engines until about 2010 will tell you about the pop-ondos on the camshafts. Engineers installed rocker arms without rollers in the valve drive of these engines, so when running up to 200,000 kilometers, in conditions of saving on oil, the camshaft cams and rocker arms ground each other. Some had to spend money on replacing camshafts, while others replaced the entire engine because a worn rocker arm fell on its side and got caught between moving parts in the cylinder head. In mid-2003, Audi engineers caught on and released 2.5 V6 TDI engines with improved cylinder heads. Rollers were built into the rocker arms, and the problem with the camshafts disappeared. True, the camshafts in these cylinder heads are lightweight, hollow. There were cases when they were simply broken in half. Well, in general, if in diesel V6s you change the oil every 10,000 kilometers and fill in oil with pump injector approval VW 505.01, then these engines can be considered $1 million. They are quite economical and give the A6 good dynamics. There are many of these cars with the proprietary Quattro drive. Two-pedal Audi A6s were equipped with both classic automatic transmissions and a CVT. The earliest versions with the lowest power 1.9 TDI and naturally aspirated 1.8 engines are found with a 4-speed automatic ZF4 HP18. The automatic transmission selector of these cars does not have a manual gear change mode. The lever simply moves in the longitudinal direction. This transmission is simple and resourceful. But, let's be honest, the latest Audi A6 C5 is already about 25 years old. They are simply not on sale, there were few of them anyway, and time has not been kind to the transmission. Other versions of the Audi A6 C5 are equipped with either a 5-speed manual transmission, automatic ZF5 horsepower -19 or Multitronic. The gear selectors for both the automatic transmission and the variator on this model are absolutely identical and have Tiptronic mode. How not to make a mistake? Multitronic appeared restyled, i.e. from mid-2000, front-wheel drive A6 C5. In manual selection mode, the variator simulates as many as 6 gears, while the ZF automatic has only 5 gears. The restyled Audi A6 C5 with Quattro all-wheel drive was equipped only with the classic ZF automatic transmission. The variator, of course, is not long-lived. Only with the most caring owners does it live up to 300,000 kilometers. There are rumors about Multitronics that live up to 500,000 kilometers, but such cases are rare. Then the variator is sent for an expensive rebuild. Today, such repairs will result in 1/3 or even half the cost of this Audi. Automatic 5 HP19 is a completely different matter. If you change the oil in it every 50,000 kilometers, it can easily last up to 500,000 km before major repairs. To save it, do not abuse sudden starts with slipping, especially before the transmission warms up in frosty weather. Watch for oil leaks from under the torque converter journal. You can buy the all-wheel drive Audi A6 C5 with confidence. The Quattro all-wheel drive transmission based on a torsion worm type limited slip differential is completely indestructible. There are no questions regarding the handout at all. The interior of the Audi A6 C5 is made with high quality and conscientiously. It is clear that the engineers and designers tried to surprise, and they succeeded. The interior is of good quality. It can be preserved in an acceptable form even after 1.5 to 2 decades of operation. But there are plenty of sores and weaknesses here. The Audi A6 C5 had dashboards from Magneti Marelli and VDO. The first option is simpler, characterized by a half-screen display of the onboard computer. with an indicator panel installed above it. This instrument panel is the most buggy. All possible troubles happen to it, from non-working backlight to lying, falling and freezing arrows. And the failure of the microprocessor disables the immobilizer, so the engine will not start. This instrument panel can be replaced with a reliable VDO, but you will have to contact an electrician with a programmer. And in general, an electrician just needs to know how to install a new panel. On the VDO panel, the onboard computer display lines stop lighting or it simply goes out. The reason is a broken cable. The display along with the cable can be bought in China and resoldered. The device will look like new. Well, if the airbag error is on the instrument panel, then you need to clean the connectors on the squibs of those airbags indicated by the error, or replace the pillow with a used one if the resistance at its connector is more than 2 ohms. In rare cases, the airbag unit simply fails due to old age. If the Audi A6 C5 complains about open doors, although they are actually open, and the light in the cabin does not go out, then you will have to change the micro switches in the door locks. The limit switches, microx, can still be bought in China. To replace them you will have to disassemble the door. You will also have to climb into the door due to breakage or wear of the sliding plastic guides of the window lifters. Due to their wear, the glass warps during movement and does not close completely. The emergency button often simply does not work due to a faulty or stuck relay. The problem is solved by replacing the button. Cleaning the relay does not help in the long term. Broken plastic hinges of the center armrest cover do not surprise anyone today. A fairly common breakdown on A6. You'll have to look for a cover or armrest at a disassembly site. On pre-restyling Audi A6 C5s, the top layer of the dashboard, that is, the front panel, is often peeled off. Usually its edge swells, bends upward or bends like a wave near the windshield, roof pillars and near the grille. In this case, you have to remove the entire panel and glue the lagging areas. In the interior of the restyled Audi A6 C5, many plastic parts are covered with a velvety coating, the so-called soft touch. It began to peel off already on 10-year-old cars. Now there is little left of him. In the floor under the driver's feet, the Audi A6 C5 has a comfort unit, also known as the central locking unit. It easily fails due to water ingress. If it gets wet and gradually fails, then all the interior electronics begin to fail. The car may not respond to the remote control for opening the locks, the interior lighting may turn on randomly or not work, the turn signals and electric seat drives may fail. The comfort unit may partially burn out due to a short circuit in the wiring laid to it. A short circuit, for example in the interior lighting lamp or in some seat drive, can damage this electronic unit. And also the next one installed as a replacement. Even with age, wires break on the Audi A6 C5. The sore spots are the areas of the door harnesses and the places where they bend and the harness in the trunk lid. Due to broken wires, consumers, lamps, locks, etc. in the doors are turned off. Often the brake calipers on the Audi A6 C5 begin to rattle and rattle. This problem is solved by replacing the spring brackets installed on the outside of the calipers. In some cases, calipers rattle due to wear between the floating and stationary parts of the caliper. Many Audi A6s are unpleasantly surprised by the appearance of water in the cabin. Well, wet carpets in the front part of the cabin are the first stage on the road to serious problems with electronic control units. On cars with a sunroof, the headliner may become wet, damp spots will appear in the corners of the hatch if the drainage hoses become tightly clogged. Less often, water flows around the perimeter of the hatch. Under the windshield of this car there is a whole basin in which the battery is installed to the right, and to the left there is a vacuum brake booster and a box with an ECU. Water from the windshield freely drains here and then flows down under the car through the drainage. But if the drainage holes become clogged with debris and leaves, this basin will be full of water. Water will be around the battery, and it will also enter the cabin through technological holes in the engine panel. Through them water spills onto the carpet under the driver's feet. There are holes in the engine shield for wiring and for the hood lock cable under the ECU box. If the seals in this place have dried out or are simply broken, then water will flow into the interior from under the front panel. Well, if the rug under the glove compartment gets wet, then most likely it is traces of condensation from the air conditioner. He hits the mat because its drainage tube is clogged or has fallen off the fitting. The Audi A6 C5, like many other badge models, received an ABS unit, which can fail due to the breakage of thin contacts. In many cases, the ABS block can be repaired by soldering the broken contacts in it. To gain access you will have to open the plastic housing of the electronic circuit. The steering rack of the Audi A6 C5 lasts a long time, but fails unexpectedly and completely. It happens that after starting the engine in the morning, the howl of the power steering pump is heard, and all the hydraulic fluid pours out from below. It flows through worn rack bushings, fills the steering rod boots and then pours out. Wear of the rack and its seals occurs due to moisture and dirt getting under the rod boots. Rust appears on the rack itself, which undermines the bushings. The rack is repairable. There is even a non-original stem, AU215C, on sale, i.e. literally the rack itself with teeth, and, of course, the entire repair kit, $15,599,949. By the way, the power steering pump on the Audi A6 C5 is also not famous for its long service life. The original costs a fortune. A good new replacement will cost $150. The suspension of the Audi A6 C5 also demonstrated the superiority of high technology and a complete lack of simplicity. In all versions, the front wheels are suspended on double wishbones. There are 2 levers at the top and bottom, each of them is attached to the steering knuckle with a separate ball joint. Total 4 ball joints for each wheel. Naturally, all levers are aluminum. Original lower arms will cost $120, $140 each, upper arms will cost $40, $70. Silent blocks for each lever can be purchased separately, even according to the original. Interestingly, before restyling, the front stabilizer links were equipped with 2 ball pins. After restyling, the rods were changed. They simply installed 2 silent blocks with holes for bolts. Old types of rods were discontinued because, and the pre-restyling A6s were converted to such traction, they cost $27. In 2002, cars with V6 engines or when fitted with alloy wheels with a diameter of 17 or 18 inches received alloy steering knuckles. A separate problem happens to them. The holes for the ball pins of the levers, usually the upper ones, are broken in them. As a result, the ball joints of the upper arms cannot be clamped in the fist. There are also cases when servicemen break off the mounting ears of aluminum knuckles. Well, in an accident they bend easily. Therefore, you have to either buy new steering knuckles or look for used ones. It is possible to replace aluminum steering knuckles with cast iron ones, but you need to select the appropriate levers and even brake calipers. Front-wheel drive Audi A6 C5s are equipped with a beam rear suspension, the so-called semi-independent suspension. It contains only 2 silent blocks, 4B0501521E, on each side at the points of attachment to the body. Each silent block comes with a light alloy holder. The original costs about $100. They last a very long time. The rear suspension beam on tired and tortured cars may bend, which will primarily affect accelerated and uneven tire wear. In this case, the beam will have to be replaced with a flat used one. There are not many complaints about the rear multi-link of the all-wheel drive Audi A6 C5, only the number of elements in it causes excitement. The rear wheels are mounted on 2 wishbones, plus rods for adjusting the wheel toe. Yes, there are a huge number of silent blocks. The silent blocks that go into the fist consist of 2 halves, each costing $23 in the original. The same front silent block of the lower control arm. Upper control arm silent blocks cost $14. The toe lever is offered only as an original, $65. But its silent blocks are offered by literally one good manufacturer at a price of $22. The body of the Audi A6 C5 is well protected from corrosion. However, road reagents are still winning the multi-year battle. First of all, the paint on these cars begins to swell on the arches of the front fenders and the lower edges of the doors and under the moldings, which over time even bulge under the onslaught of rust. The headlight lenses of the Audi A6 become cloudy, but this problem can be solved by polishing. Also, after 15 to 20 years of operation, the mirror coating in the lens reflectors crumbles, after which the headlights illuminate the road very poorly. To restore or replace reflectors, or lenses in general, you will have to unstick the headlights. Fog lamps are often simply destroyed, scratched or damaged by stones. They are installed too low in the bumper,